Hi everybody, welcome to the makeup chair. So as the name of this video suggests, I am going to be showing you guys how to cover up a breakout. Now I don't actually get very bad breakouts, but I do get mild cases of breakouts and redness on my face. So I'm going to be showing you guys how I cover them. So the next clip that you're going to see is me with no makeup on whatsoever, so don't be too scared. And I'm going to show you guys how to cover it up so it doesn't look as bad. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. Check out the box below for any details that you might need. Ask me anything on here, Formspring, or on Facebook, and just keep watching. Okay, so here is me without any makeup on whatsoever. As you can see, I get a lot of breakouts down here. I don't really get any in my forehead, but I get a lot around this whole area. I have some redness on my nose, a little bit of breakout in between my eyebrows. That's actually just from plucking and stuff. But yeah, blemishes all the way around here, so it's kind of annoying. So we're going to start off and try and cover these as best as we can. Now I would say it's best to use a primer. I'm going to be using a primer. Now if you have oily skin, you want to use like a mattifying primer. I've also washed and moisturized my face. A lot of people think, oh, if my face is oily, I'm not going to moisturize it, but you do need to moisturize so that your foundation and your stuff has something to kind of stick to. So make sure you do moisturizer, use a moisturizer, especially if you have dry skin like me. I have very dry skin, but I still have blemishes. A lot of people think you have to have oily skin to have blemishes, but I'm just going to put this primer on. We're over here, and the great thing about most primers are they're gonna help give the skin a very kind of sheen, so it's like a flawless kind of almost layer over the skin, so it's gonna protect your face from the products. So say if you tend to have a breakout because you use a lot of products, if you use a primer beforehand, it kind of gives a layer before you put on the makeup, and also it gives a very smooth texture to the skin. And it's a lot easier to cover blemishes and breakouts and stuff if the skin's a little bit smoother. You might want to use an oil-free primer if you have oily skin, or like a Velvet Touch primer, or a mineral infused primer if you have kind of dryish skin, or combination skin. You want to be very, very gentle when you're touching this face, especially when you have breakouts and stuff. You don't want to be rubbing at the face too much. It can actually cause breakouts. These ones here were actually caused by too much friction. I used an exfoliator yesterday, and that's why I got a breakout. So just be very, very gentle with your skin. Make sure your hands are super clean. You want to make sure that you don't touch anything, you know, and then touch your face. So wash your hands in between doing anything else throughout the day. Say if you're doing your hair before you did your makeup, make sure you wash your hands. Now we're going to move on to the makeup. So I'm actually going to start off by using a foundation, a liquid foundation like this. So I'm going to take a little bit of pump of that, and I'm going to be using a brush. So a nice kind of medium-sized brush right here. The reason why I'm using a brush is you get a little bit more of a consistency where it's a little bit thicker. You don't get as much of a sheen finish when you use a brush. So if you are looking for a little bit extra coverage, try using a brush. So I'm just going to apply a very small, even layer of this foundation, like this. Pretty much placing this where I need it and then blending it outwards. So I don't really need as much on my forehead, so I'm just going to kind of do that last. I'm going to put a little bit under my eyes and on my eyelids. And then blend down the neck just to make sure it's all blended. And as you can see, most of the kind of redness and irritation around my nose area has been covered up. Now we're going to move on to concealing. I'm going to take a little bit of my concealer. Now if you're using a stick concealer, you might want to warm it up in the back of your hand. However, I find you get more of a coverage if you use a cream or a liquid concealer. And I'm going to use the same brush, but you can use a little brush like this if you want just a concealer brush. I'm just going to stick to the same brush. Now I put it onto the back of my hand just so I can kind of dip in. You want to make sure the back of your hands are super clean as well as your brushes. And I'm just going to dot this underneath my eye, like that, and onto the blemishes there, nose area, because that can be quite red, and onto the blemishes. Now if these blemishes were kind of weeping or seeping anyway, you wanted to make sure that they're completely dry and clear, because if you start using your brush to blend everything else over the spots, you're actually going to be spreading that bacteria that's in there. So if it's a broken spot, make sure that you try and clear it up with a little bit of witch hazel or tea tree oil, which actually bring down the swelling and help it to heal over before you start applying your makeup, because if it's bleeding or anything like that, it's not going to be easy to cover, and it'll also spread to the rest of your face. So I'm just dabbing it over the spots. Probably have to go back over this again. Now you don't have to always use a flat brush. What you can use is kind of, I don't know if I have one here. You can kind of use a fluffy brush, provided it's quite small, and do little circular motions. You actually get a really good coverage with using kind of fluffier brushes, especially around the eye area. And I also find they're really good for around this whole area here. Now you see the way that I'm tapping it like this rather than rubbing it like this? You actually get a more coverage, and you get it right into the skin if you tap it on like this rather than sweeping, because as you sweep you can actually remove some of it. So just tap it and kind of dab it as you go along, so it's kind of dabbing like that instead of like this, because actually kind of doesn't get as much coverage, and we want plenty of coverage so that we're covering every kind of broken capillary or blemish or redness that we might have. Now if you're dealing with a little bit of puffiness or redness under the eye, first of all you want to make sure that you get rid of the redness. So say if you do have under eye circles, you want to remove them first of all by using something that's kind of a concealer with a little bit of highlighter in it. It'll actually remove it a little bit better. And then if you want to try and get rid of the little bags under your eyes, what you can do is you can take the flat end of your brush, take a little bit of your concealer, just a little bit like that, and if you just dab it where, and I don't really have them that bad, but just where the shadow is created, and then I'm just gonna dab it a little bit. It just looks a tiny bit better, and it's not as obvious. A little bit difficult with mine because mine's actually the fact that my eye is just that shape. I have prominent eyes, so getting rid of it's a little bit more difficult. But just placing the highlighting concealer onto where the puffiness is, just underneath it, so the shadow that is created is a little bit lighter. It'll actually mattify that area and make it look a little bit flat. Also, by covering up the redness underneath the eye, if you lift your eye and you're looking straight upwards, it kind of flattens the whole place underneath the eye. You want to use your ring finger as well, and you don't want to drag, so you don't want to go like this. You actually just want to pat underneath the eye, because that can actually cause a little bit more irritation around the eye area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little brush, I'm going to dab it over the blemish like this, and then I'm just going to tap outwards. So it's only kind of getting onto the blemish and then tapping the outer part. It's a little bit more difficult to cover the kind of smaller ones, these ones right here, because they're actually casting a shadow. So it'd be easier if they were a little bit flatter. It's actually easier to cover redness that's flat rather than kind of a bump or whatever. Now what a lot of people have a problem with is the fact that their concealer might not be the same brand as their foundation, and it can also be quite a different colour. So what I like to do is take a little bit of my foundation and then dab it. Once my concealer has set, I like to just dab it over it just to make sure that it blends in with the rest of my face. Now as you can see, it's a lot lighter, but it's because when you first of all put on foundation, especially one of the cheaper brands, it can take a while for it to set. So this will eventually set and change colour and be the rest, like the rest of my face. So just be aware of that. A lot of the time we actually go for something that's a bit too dark for us because we haven't realised that it's going to set and it's going to go darker. Okay, so as you can see, a lot of the redness has been covered by using the foundation. Now I'm going to go on, I'm going to use mineral based products. Now a lot of people say you shouldn't mix them, and you should get enough coverage out of using the mineral, or you should get enough coverage out of using the foundation. But I actually do like to mix them so I get a full coverage, which is essential when you have a lot of breakouts, because you do want full coverage. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. And what I've actually, what you want to make sure is that you actually do your liquid first and then do your mineral based powders, because if you do it the opposite way around, you start off with your powders and then you trying to add like a liquid based foundation or concealer, it can kind of go a little bit patchy, it won't blend as well. So do your liquids first and then do your powders. So I'm going to start off by using like either concealer, a mineral powder or whatever, but I'm going to be using a Blemish, what's this called? Mineral Blemish powder. So I'm just going to take a little bit onto a little brush. This is just an eyeshadow brush that's completely clean, and I rarely use this one. So I'm going to take a little bit of the powder, so it's on there. I'm going to tap it into the lid, just so we don't get it all over our face. And I'm only going to put this where I need it, so I'm actually going to place it just underneath the eye very gently. Now I'm not placing it right up underneath the eye because it can actually end up looking kind of cakey. So I'm just going to very lightly brush around the eye area. And take a little bit of this, then once I've done underneath the eyes, you want to do the eyes first and then do the blemishes. So I'm just going to do the blemishes now. So just little circles. I'm going to pat it on first of all and then do little circles in there. And the minerals actually help to kind of clear up the skin because they've got like vitamins and all that kind of stuff in there. That's usually what they have anyway. And that's why I like using them over my blemishes, because they're not only hiding them but they're also helping to prevent them and clear them up. So I'm also going to do a little bit around the nose area. There's a little bit of redness. You do want to make sure that you allow your foundation to set first of all, because say if I had a very kind of oily or very creamy foundation first of all and I didn't allow it to dry a little bit, what I'd end up doing was as soon as I put the brush down there would just be a lot of powder there because it would actually just stick to the liquid. So you do want to give your skin a little bit of time to settle before you do your minerals or your powders. Even if you're doing like a translucent powder over this, you'd want to make sure you do the same, or your blush even. Concentrating this on the actual blemish rather than creating a halo around the redness. So you want to make sure that you're getting it onto the blemish rather than just getting it in that whole area. Now if you have a redness in a lot of area, like right here I have a lot of redness, then I'm going to place a little bit more there. And on my nose. Because even though a lot of the redness is covered now, if I left this for the entire day, the redness would start to show through again, the blemishes would start to go through, start to show through again. That's basically just the way that it is. But with this mineral powder on top, or even using a good consistency of a matte powder or a loose powder, it actually helps it to last a little bit longer and it's not going to show through as much. So now we're going to make sure that our whole face is even. And a little trick that I like to do is I like to use either a sheer or a fair foundation over the top. So I'm going to be using the mineral ones. I'm going to be using a light, I think. I have light and fair here. I think I'm going to use a light because it's kind of yellow based, which looks pretty good on most people. So I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow based. It's kind of goldy looking actually. I don't know, it's weird. And I'm going to take my little brush right here. Any type of brush is totally fine for this. What you want to do is you want to load up your brush when you're using minerals. You want to load up the brush, then you want to tap it off. And now we're going to start blending the foundation over everything that we've done. And this is just going to give a really nice finish to the skin. And it's going to help to hide a little bit more. And it's also going to help keep the skin and the blemishes concealed all day long. So that is pretty much it. I don't know if you can see, but the redness across my nose is completely gone. The under eye circles are basically disappeared. Now the redness underneath here is kind of gone, even though on this camera for some reason it's showing up more. I don't know why, because looking in the mirror you can't really see them. But the kind of little shadow that it's casting, because it's quite a high bump, is the only thing that you can really see. Other than that, it's pretty much disappeared. Now if you have those kind of spots that are kind of bumpy, what you can do is you can, a bit like what we did underneath the eye, you can take a little bit of a highlighting concealer, place it underneath where the bump is, where that shadow is being cast, and it just kind of flattens that whole area so it doesn't look as obvious, but from far away those things aren't even obvious at all. So don't worry about it too much, but this should keep you going pretty much the entire day. You shouldn't have any problems with your makeup slipping because we use a mixture of the liquid and the mineral. So I really hope you enjoyed that. I've left some suggestions of products to try out from a lot of different budget ranges in the box below if you want to check that out, as well as a list of products that I've been using in this video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and if you want to finish this off, you can just add a little bit of blush, lipstick, a little bit of eye makeup, and you're good to go. So I really hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm Shane Katie. Thanks for watching.